Welcome to Austin Coding Academy presents the Tech Recruiter Forum. A lot of you guys are here to learn about what it's like to get a job in tech. Some of you already have jobs in tech, some of you are looking for jobs in tech, but we're gonna go over lots of that stuff tonight. For those of you that don't know Austin Coding Academy, we're a part-time coding school, and our whole goal and our whole mission is to provide affordable, accessible coding education. And so tonight, we are continuing down that path. Part of accessibility to us is having fun. We want to make this enjoyable and fun, just the idea of coding and getting into the whole tech field. So that's what we're going to try and do tonight. We have some incredible panelists for you guys, excuse me. We have Dylan from Keystoke. We have Lonnie from Austin Digital Jobs, Brett Simon from Agile Velocity, Lucas Mitchell from Luna Data Solutions, Jess Chavez from OnPrem, and Anna McCormick from IBM. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to ask them if you guys could introduce yourselves, tell us what you do at your company, and what your first job was ever. So tell us a little bit about that. Anna, start with you.
Why not? Hi, I'm Anna. Hello. Nice to meet you. So what I do for my company right now is IBM Design, which is 2.5 years old for a 104-year-old company, so it's very different. But what I do is I'm typically an industry hire, so I'm a 2-year to executive recruiter. I'll be moving into college actually on September 1st, but I recruit for IBM Design. Been doing it for maybe 6 months now. Very excited, very challenging, welcomed. My first job, I was a lifeguard. And it was not anything like Baywatch. So, yeah, I wish it was. It would be kind of cool. But yeah, I no hassle, thankfully, actually. But yeah, during my time there, I had one save in 5 years. And those fat little baby legs up in the air. And I was like, ah, you know, and jumped down and grabbed him. But it taught me a lot about taking care of your kids at the pool. So,
Awesome.
All of you. I will jump and save a child.
Jess Chavez. I work for OnPrem. It's a consultant firm. So we have 2 branches. We have an arm that does all consulting, so project management, consulting, business analysts. And then we have an arm here in Austin that does all custom development. So it's basically like a dev lab. So I run recruitment for our dev lab. It's exciting and fast-paced, and I pretty much handle everything you could imagine. It's just me. My first job, I worked at Juice Stop, which is really similar to Jamba Juice. And it was primetime soccer season, and it just happened to be like by maybe 12 K through 12 soccer fields. There was like a line out the door, and this lady was yelling at me, and I got pineapple juice in my eye, and I just walked out. I was like, I'm over this. It was just burning. Yeah, it wasn't a good thing. So
drop your microphone.
Yeah. So I wouldn't suggest that now. You know, we'll get into that later, but.
Name's Lucas Mitchell. Work with Luna Data Solutions. I was brought on about 3 months ago. I'm starting up a creative and marketing division that focuses on placing anything presentation layer and above for developers, designers, companies that are trying to build a digital profile. So I oversee all of the recruiting teams involved in that and all of the client management. First job, I was 9 years old throwing hay bales and driving a tractor down the road, driving like back and forth between the farm and the field. So people were looking kind of oddly at this little 9-year-old kid driving a giant tractor. That's what happens when you grow out in BFE. And I quit that job at age 10. So.
Did you also walk out? You just walked out.
Deuces, I'm out.
All right, I'm Brett Simon. I work at Agile Velocity. We're a agile coaching, training, and obviously staffing company. So I run all our staffing practices, and we focus on senior level engineering and product development roles. Got into this business as an engineer, a really bad one, and got into recruiting. So I actually wish I had an education like you guys all got. My first job was at McDonald's, and I have the scars on my hands from the fryer to prove it. And it was horrible because, I don't know, when you're 14, 15 years old, like acne is already an issue, but when you throw like a pound of grease every day on top of it, it was pretty horrific. So that was awesome. That was my first job.
So you're saying this is an improvement?
It is an improvement. I mean, what you see here now, this masterpiece is an improvement.
Jerk. My name is Lonnie Rosales. I'm the founder of the Austin Digital Jobs Group on Facebook. So if I've ever been mean to any of you guys, I'm sorry in advance. As my day job, I am the Chief Operating Officer at theamericangenius.com, which is an entrepreneur news site. My first job. I worked at my aunt and uncle's children's bookstore starting at age 13, and because I was young and I was always really little, like I didn't even hit 5 feet till like halfway through college, but I was always really little, so parents would come in and say, you know that book with the dog on it? Really? The book with the dog on it? So I learned really early how to narrow down requests. Yeah, the book with the dog on it.
All right, I'm Dylan Tano. I'm the creative director at Keystoke / senior business analyst. We're a early stage startup, I guess, the right terminology. I handle basically everything under the sun. If you interview for us, you'll see me. I'll be your personality test. I handle project management, development, design, the whole 9 yards. Keeping it short, my first job was setting up mobile homes. I was 14. My dad knew a guy, a friend of his. So 14-year-old me, small beanpole for that. I didn't think 100 pounds, so I was a sophomore in high school. Carrying cinder blocks like this, all day around 40-year-old men used to be bikers, tattoos, beer, the whole 9 yards. And that actually lasted a summer. And then I was 15 and didn't do that again.
Awesome. Very cool. So the way this is going to work tonight is we have a series of questions for the panelists. Some of them are going to be kind of one-off questions where we just get direct responses to them. Others we're going to kind of open it up for a discussion because as I think you'll see, a lot of these questions are very open-ended, and a lot of it depends on both who you are and who the company is that you're working with. As you can see, we have a variety of different organizations here. Very, very large companies, more beginning startups, everything in between, and so you're going to get a lot of different opinions tonight. So we're really excited about that. The first question, I'm actually going to start back here with you, Dylan, and then we'll just kind of work our way back through here. Can you take us through the steps a candidate has to go through to interview with your company, basically from the time they apply to the time they're hired? Okay, so you've applied, we've read your resume, we've called you. We'll call you in for an introductory, basically interview. You'll meet with myself, if I'm not on a client meeting, Sterling, our CEO, and we'll kind of give just kind of like the cursory kind of who are you, what you do, how you got here. We're at that stage looking more for like how well you respond, how you communicate. We're not really too concerned about what's on your resume. We will make sure that you know what's on your resume. So in case you printed it off the internet from someone else, put your name on it, you can at least have the gumption to back it up. After that, if you kind of presented yourself well initial, if we're hiring you for a development role, Mark, our senior developer, will send you a project that him and I cooked up. And the goal of the project isn't necessarily even that you complete it, it's that you put effort into it. It's actually typically a really simple project disguised as something a lot more complex. So we want to see how well you solve the problem. Because a lot of what we do as an early stage startup, developing an IPO while also doing like client work, is solving problems. We want to see how well you think on your feet, how well you can decipher what the request really is, and how well you can find an issue. Like Google, Stack Overflow, all these things exist to help devs, even early junior devs. And if you know to go find that, you can solve the problem with that, and that's great. That's what we're looking for. And if you pass it and we like it, we're pretty quick. At that point, we're probably bringing in, discuss salary, see what your terms are, and pending any background check that we may or may not even do, I'm actually not sure of that, you're in. And then if you fit the personality through those two, I'm gauging you. If you're a personality fit, then definitely in. We've let go of devs that didn't fit personality-wise, because there's only like 4 or 5 of us. So if you fit personality-wise, that's important, because we don't need people throwing beer bottles against the wall at the end of the day because code didn't get pushed right. How big is the Keystoke team in total? How many people?
6 at the moment, I think, counting the lawyer, one lawyer, an investor, CEO, board, and then like me and one other dev.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool, awesome.
Really small.
Lonnie?
So we're a digital news organization. I mostly hire writers, but from time to time we do hire freelance people to work on our code and do different projects. So I think personality, especially at smaller organizations like ours, is really important because for ours you report directly to the CEO. So you have to be able to get along with an A-type personality, and So that's a big part of ours, honestly, is doing the video interviews and trying to find people that connect with our leadership team. But since we do mostly hiring of freelancers, which I know a lot of you in the room probably aren't going to do, but some of you may choose to do, for an organization like ours, besides the personality fit, our main concern is always past work and connecting with your clients that you've had in the past, that they're happy. So ours is nowhere near as sophisticated of a model as what you'll hear next, but ours is very basic, references, looking at your past work, and do you get along with our CEO? It's actually really simple.
Cool, awesome. Brett?
All right, so I'm an agency recruiter, so and a little different. So when I get a resume or if I contact somebody, I want to have a brief 10-15-minute conversation just to kind of get a brief idea of how they communicate. From there, we generally have coffee or lunch and kind of dig through their resume and kind of understand where their strengths and where their weaknesses are. I feel like they're a fit for one of our clients. We have our own internal tech team that I send them through before I send them on to our clients, and then they would start the interview process with our clients from there.
Where's your favorite coffee shop in town?
All right, so Genuine Joe on Anderson is like my office away from my office.
Okay.
I love it.
Good to know.
Great spot.
What's that?
It's a great spot.
It is a good spot. Great coffee.
Lucas?
I work in an agency as well. A little bit different than what Brett does here, but I'll speak to when I hire folks as well internally, because it's pretty much the same as what we're going to be doing when we're placing people out. We sit down, we'll do a phone screen initially to go through technical background, understand the technologies that somebody's familiar with. They're going to sit down then and talk with one of our recruiters who's going to build out a profile of the type of work that they're looking for. So we want to understand, are you looking for a large corporate entity? Are you looking for that startup feel? Are you looking mid-size? What fits your personality? Are you needing to work remote? Building all of those different pieces in place so that when we're talking with one of the 195 different clients that we have here in Austin, we have profiles built on them, and we'll match up and call them up and be like, here's somebody we think fits your profile. We'll do for designers and front-end developers, we'll do either a portfolio or a code review with them as well to take a look and see, okay, do they have an active GitHub account? Are they somebody who is active in the community to see, are they trying to improve themselves on a daily basis? We'll do reference checks as well, so we're going to call somebody that they've either worked with or a professor that they've had. And this is all prior to interviewing with the end client, who then is going to have 3 or 4 different steps as well during the interview process, but we've eliminated at least 2 or 3 normally on the agency side by putting those processes in place.
Cool.
On-prem is interesting. We have a plethora of roles open, but as a consultant, we don't have like a tech stack, right? You could be doing something different all the time. So I'm looking for front end, I'm looking for back end, I'm looking for QA, I'm looking for UX, UI. Those are probably the 4 roles that I focus the most on. And the interview process is different for all of those things. I'm sure you can understand that. And it's different whether it's coming from an agency, whether it's someone that I sourced, or whether it's an internal referral. So if it's coming from an agency and there's someone that's actively interviewing, I have to move things faster. So I have a different process of people that they meet along the way to make it as efficient as possible. So my goal from an agency standpoint is 3 interviews. If I'm bringing someone in myself, I always want to meet them before I'm going to absorb time from my team. So that's probably like a 4-step process. If it's a referral, it could be 2 or 3 steps because someone already knows them, they can vouch for their work, they've either worked with them before or just really like what they're doing. And so it's important to integrate the right people at the right times so that you as candidates get what you want, right? I can't overload you with the things that you like benefits, right? You might not want to know benefits right away. You're more concerned of like, what am I going to be doing every day and who am I going to be working with? So it's important that I can structure those things accordingly. And it's just kind of like it's a real flexible process for us. And we're really casual. We're a little bit larger than Keystoke. The Austin office is 25. And it's spread out between those disciplines that I talked about, front end or back end or things like that. And so there are homework assignments involved, but it just depends on which track you're coming through and how you're getting to me.
IBM Design, as I said, it's 2.5 years old. So it's the feel of a startup with the challenges of a centennial company that's massive. How we go through everything, we don't have the flexibility. I wish we could, but scalable. You have to. Our goal is to make a cultural change with design at the forefront of our software products now, and to make that happen, we have to be consistent, and it has to be scalable. So every candidate, no matter whether they're UX, dev, research, whatever, they apply online. The first step is to pass you through a portfolio screening, in which 2 to 3, depending on if there's a tiebreaker needed, 2 to 3 developers or the same specialty that you're applying for analyze your work, and they look at it and they say, hey, this is why this doesn't or does work. If you're passed through a portfolio screen, you continue on to a phone screen, which is a 1-hour conversation with, again, a person similar in your genre. Passed on through that, then is a face-to-face. Austin is the hub right now of anything IBM Design. So even if you're applying for San Francisco or New York, you come in and we fly you into Austin. And you go through a 4-person, one-on-one, not a panel, because that's intimidating, right? But you have 4 people that are one-on-one conversations with you. And we talk about it. You know, what did you speak to? Why do they want IBM Design? What's their passion? And most importantly, what is their process? You know, do you understand the user problem? And can you speak to that? And how do you know that that's really the problem? And how do you solve that? That's more UX talk, but for developing purposes, it's very similar. So that's kind of how we do things.
Great. So this is awesome, and I hope you guys are understanding that there's a very wide range of processes that are going through here. I wanted to take the next question and kind of open it more up for discussion. We're gonna have a little bit of fun with this one. So I'll probably start with Jess, and I'm gonna ask a question, and I want you guys to feel free to speak out, but before you do, just so it's not too crazy or cluttered, if you agree with a point, definitely raise your glass. Cheers. Yeah, I totally get that. Understand that. So what I want to happen for the audience is so that they can get into a mindset of what your lives are like and what you guys deal with every day and how to kind of get into the recruiter's mind. So Jess, I'll start with you. What is the hardest part about your job, or what do you wish candidates knew about the way your job worked?
Yeah, all right, Dylan. Sometimes I think it's difficult for people to understand that I am one person doing a lot of things. So having empathy in understanding that I have 2 Java architects. If you're interviewing for a back-end position, I have to have time from them. If they're traveling in between client sites, I would prefer that you could meet them in person, but we run all of our meetings through what we call an OnPrem Connect, which is like a hack between 1,000 things. Basically, it's a Google Hangout. But that's not the most friendly thing, right? Especially if you're really gonna talk shop. So sometimes being patient in the interview process to understand that I have a ton of moving pieces behind me that I have to line up and coordinate so that you actually have a good experience and have a good feeling about OnPrem, that can take time sometimes. Also, it's difficult to tell people no. We have a small team, so I can't support a ton of junior folks. There are areas in my business that are higher in demand that I can support more juniors. But if I email a candidate, and this actually happened the other day, I said, hey, you know, really liked your resume, you're just a little bit too junior for this role, and unfortunately we can't really support you, and I don't want to bring you in and like throw you to the wolves, right? Or not have anything for you to work on. And the response that I got back was really negative, and it was just kind of like, this is HR speak and blah, 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 and I don't want to be kept in touch with. And I was like, man, that's kind of silly because you're the only person I offered that to, but you've already shot it down, so bye, Felicia. Like, I don't know, I don't know what to say.
Any thoughts on that, or any?
Oh man, the fun negative comments you get, those are, let's not talk about that. No, I love it when candidates are welcome. If you don't get passed through the first time, nobody is gonna be mad. You may not get a response, but reaching out and asking for feedback is totally okay. You know, like, hey, what could I develop better? You know, raise your glass. Everybody knows that's true. But that's okay. I mean, the worst thing you possibly do is if you get rejected to send a negative feedback. That's the worst thing you could do.
I think there's actually something worse, is trying to go around. And very often people will try to go above me and say, okay, well, I got to know, so I'm going to try somebody else. Like, what the hell? Don't email my boss, you idiot.
I think for us, it's someone gives up or just like sends us a message that
There it is, first one.
Okay. All right. Like someone gives up on the dev question or says it's too hard. We're a small dev company. We move fast. We work with companies like Gannett, which owns USA Today. You know, we need someone that's going to like solve problems. And needs to have the gumption to at least say, you know, I couldn't figure it out, but here's what I got. You know, because we can always pick the ball up and run with it. Negativity, giving up, just that general like. No one wants an alpha attitude in the office when everyone else is just trying to work together. It's just not worth it, especially for the interview process. It's just the worst.
Also,
thing.
your mom talking to me is probably a huge turn off.
Is that happen?
Yeah,
I've never had that one.
Your mom, your grandson.
I saw a guy
Why
post
are
on
you
a
applying?
site today. His
don't
mom
know.
was like, "Oh, he just got laid off due to politics.
Yeah.
If anybody's looking for this,"
That's a
and somebody
bummer.
wrote underneath, they were just like, "Look, probably not a good thing when your mom's trying to get you a job. Just give
Watch
up."
what you post on Facebook. We check it. Just-
We do.
Yeah.
I think too, realizing that a lot of the times, a lot of the anger, if somebody doesn't get a job, or you know, there's this facade of control that a recruiter has in determining whether or not somebody becomes hired. A recruiter is simply somebody who's going to influence whether or not you get on to the person who's going to make that decision. So getting angry or getting, you know, whatever the case may be, that can be a real challenge as well, because we might have thought you were the greatest person we've ever met and
Yeah.
want to take you home that night, but that's just not going to happen. Because
Can we? No.
but you know, at the end of the day, we have to ask the person who's got the money to hire you whether or not you're the right person, and we really, you know, we're not the person who has the say in that. We're simply relaying the message.
This has turned into a therapy session. It's just
Welcome to Maury.
I think the thing that I struggle with sometimes, or candidates struggle with sometimes, is understanding the level of transparency I need. I need like the complete truth from you. If I'm going to match you up with an employer you really want to be at and they really like you, I need to know what your motivations are. I need to know where your income level is, truthfully. I'm not trying to do a sales pitch on you. Like, I need to know this information if I'm going to do right by you and do right by my client, which is really my end goal, right? So it's a lot more altruistic than I think than some people think recruiting is. We're really out there to help two parties as opposed to kind of do a used car salesman pitch onto people. So sometimes there's some skepticism that's hard to overcome.
And that mentality, especially if you're working with a third-party recruiter, the majority of the contracts that are in place between a recruiting agency and an organization are targeted so that the more money that the candidate makes, the more money that we as recruiters make as well. Our interest is to try to get you as much as we humanly possible because that affects our income as well. So we're on your side, and not to his point, not having that transparency and that belief that, you know, we're there to help it's very hard to overcome and build that partnership of trying to find the next job for the person we're representing.
And to kind of piggyback on that, well, at the same time, like
We'll just keep going.
yeah.
quick point, because we have a number of questions that we want to get through tonight. But we're
Yeah, real quick point, and also be realistic. I mean, if you're wanting 20% of our market, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I mean, while our interests are aligned financially, we want to be realistic with our client as well.
Do magic, Brett.
Yes.
Do magic.
Great. Well, so I'm going to turn it right back to you, Brett, and then again open this up for conversation. But how important is the degree to you guys as far as not only just having a degree, but also like a computer science degree versus a liberal arts degree or a regular bachelor's degree. A lot of people that we work with in our classes think, especially when they're applying to our classes, I have a communications degree, I have a psychology degree. Like, is this something that I can get into? Are they going to look at me? What are your guys' thoughts on that?
So let me first start by saying, so my last job prior to this one with Agile Velocity is I managed a technical bench of .NET developers, and I had everything from PhD to barely a high school diploma. And those two are my best developers, the guy who had a high school diploma and barely graduated high school and the PhD. So it doesn't matter at all. Quite frankly, software development is a meritocracy. And so you will get the job that you deserve based on your skill and the amount of work you want to put into it.
Great.
I'll probably counter that a little bit. We have a mixed team. We have people that are self-taught. We have people that have masters, PhDs. When we bid on work as a firm, we include resumes. Like, we have to prove to our clients that we have the team that can take this on. And some clients care about that stuff, especially if you're in a position of like, you're gonna be a Java architect, right? That not only requires a large amount of skill, but it also requires an extreme amount of technical knowledge, both underneath the hood, right, of like how things are working, and then the theoretical thoughts of things. Because if I send my Java architect somewhere, and we work with Hollywood studios, right? So a lot of our work is with Disney. If he goes out to Disney and Disney has all these different systems and there's 25 servers and there's all these different departments that are using information and where is it flowing and who's using what and what's likely to break. Sometimes those things require the stuff that you would get in like a CS degree, but not everyone has to have that. It's not a box that I decide to check or not check, but at times the partners in my firm do care about that because they're going to use your information to bid on different work.
See, I think it's more of a question of more like black or white. Is it important or not?
Yeah.
I think to Brett's point, it's a meritocracy, and for the folks that are coming out of school, regardless of where you're coming out of, the fact that you've completed some sort of program is one of the steps along the way to certifying that you actually know what you're doing. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what school's all about, is to get you ready to go work in something where you're going to know what you're doing. So, if to the guy who barely graduated high school, he's probably got 6 programs that he's built and he's got 5 people that can speak to his work. Where if somebody came in and said, I know how to code, but I don't have any degrees and I don't really have anybody that can speak to my work, I don't want to take my chance in paying you because that's part of my business, and I don't want to risk it on somebody who has nobody or no place that can vouch for him or her.
I mean, to his point, the guy who had a high school diploma, he was an architect at Microsoft, so he had some credibility to back that up. I will say this, that if you have a CS degree, the distance you need to travel in your career is a lot less. If you start from a high school diploma, you really got to be aggressive, and you really have to learn a lot on your own, and you really have to prove yourself. But it's possible.
Yeah, that's the beauty of open source, right? You can work on it all the time, anytime you want. We can all look at your GitHub accounts. We can see what you're doing.
Dylan, did you want to make one?
Yeah, as a college dropout, with attempted English degree, being unfortunately self-taught, we look at it, and clients do ask for it, especially when we're doing government work. But ultimately, for us, it doesn't matter. I'm working on a big project for the state of Texas right now. No degree, self-taught, covering a lot of different aspects from back-end architecture, front-end architecture. Ultimately, if you can get the work done, that's what really counts. Yes, having a degree helps, because there's like the first year of convincing people over and over again, yes, I know what I'm doing. Yes, I've been coding since high school. Yes, I have this on lock. A lot of it is selling yourself. I got lucky in that regard. I can do that. Not everyone can. But I guess it's like a chip on my shoulder to an extent. I don't think it really cares too much. I mean, our lead JavaScript dev has a degree focused on AI and game design. And he's one of the best coders I've had the luxury of meeting. I know guys that work at Microsoft and moved out to San Francisco working that kind of stuff in the Research Triangle in Raleigh back home. It's all about who hasn't. If you have a knack for it, you got a knack for it.
Yep.
Cool. So one thing that Jess, you started to talk about, and everybody's been kind of briefly mentioning here and there, but one thing I'd love to hear you guys dive more into is how to best sell yourself, and specifically, how do you guys look at things like Obviously GitHub's important, but also, Twitter, is it important to have a blog? How does that weigh for you guys? Being active in the community, and also things offline as well too. Like tell us a little bit about people that might just apply online versus somebody that might have a friend that works at your company or somewhere nearby. I don't know if you want to start off, Anna.
Yeah. Strictly speaking, for developers, we definitely consider first GitHub is huge for us. You're always going to attach a resume because that's part of the process of applying. But GitHub is huge.
And please make it a Word resume.
Yeah.
Please.
PDF. Can I get an amen to that?
as opposed to what, Google Docs?
As opposed to PDF.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, GitHub's a huge deal. LinkedIn is really useful, but it's not one of those things that's going to make or break. If your LinkedIn is like 20 connections, we're like, that's not a thing. So GitHub is huge. Really making sure that you have a developed portfolio is another big deal for us. So if you have those two, or you don't now and you want to develop those first before applying, that gets you in a lot faster and a lot better.
And just real quick, what's the best way to show off that portfolio? Is it best to have like a website, or just say, look at my GitHub, here's my link?
I've seen all sorts. GitHub has been a portfolio before in an application. It's really going back to what you just said. We care about how you sell yourself, but how you sell your process is really big. Why did you use jQuery versus HTML versus whatever? Why did you choose to use that platform? Why did you do that? And then what's your process through that? If we can read and visually see that process and you can explain it and speak to it, gold.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Our coding assignments, like homework-wise, is to do in any language you want. And the reason is because, like I said earlier, we don't have a set tech stack, right? We could bid on projects that might be Python backend. We could bid on only projects that are JavaScript with associated frameworks. It is about how did you get to this end result. We don't have an interview process where you're just up there whiteboarding in front of someone. It is like, okay, the proof is in the pudding. You're going to do these things. Did you run your unit tests? If you didn't, that's kind of a bummer, right? So it's just looking at how you're getting from A to B, and if you're passionate about doing it, right? When we make hiring decisions, it's normally a 60-40 split. It's 60% personality. Do you have the grit to deal with the challenges that are going to be thrown your way? Can you learn? Are you a tenacious learner, right? Do you have that natural curiosity to attend meetups, to get an egghead account, to continue to teach yourself? And then, are you going to fit in with our team, right? I can't teach someone to be collaborative, but we can definitely teach someone to ramp up on a technical skill.
I think, in all honesty as well, people get very concerned about resumes, and as well, like the data on the resume should be correct, grammar should be correct. There's no set format that makes it easier, although each recruiter's got their own opinion, so I'm not going to bash on that, but thinking that a resume is going to get you a job is just foolishness. A resume is something that is used to start a conversation with the teams that are in place, and the more research that you do on the front end of the type of people that are working there, look them up on LinkedIn, look them up on whatever, look up their backgrounds, be curious about what the organization as a whole is doing, because that might be, pay-wise, it might be fantastic, but you don't want to sit in a shack all day coding. Like, they're paying you a lot of money to sit there and it sucks. Like, that can happen as well. So make sure you're doing your research so that when you sit down and talk to that person who's going to be making those hiring decisions, you connect with them on some sort of level, rather than thinking that I have the greatest resume on the planet and everybody should be lining up to hire me. It's a way of I guess being prepared is the best way that I can put it, and make sure that the interest level that you truly have is represented in the conversation you're having with the hiring manager.
Great.
Yeah, because you're telling us who you are, right? If I haven't met you in person, everything you show me online is exactly who I'm going to think you are. And so the way you cater that, and like to Lucas's opinion too, it's like it's nice to have multiple versions of your resume. You shouldn't just have one set thing.
You asked about how to market yourself, and I think we're all probably going to have a little bit of a different answer, but from my perspective, we're hiring whenever we're hiring a freelance person, it's always going to be WordPress, PHP, so it's so super specific. but we do care that you're online in some capacity. So if you don't have a website or a blog, that's always like absolutely off-putting. And that's coming from like a non-recruiter, like a smaller company. So, you know, I hire writers all the time. I have 80 of them, but we rarely hire programming people. So barely anybody on our team knows what the hell we're doing. You know better what you're doing than we do. So for those of us who don't know exactly, for the smaller companies that may not have a hiring director, we're looking at your existing work. We're looking at your GitHub account. We're looking at those things. But if you're not found online anywhere and we can't look at your personality before ever going beyond the resume, then it's like automatically tossed out.
Don't overload your resume with a bunch of things that you barely know. I mean, we see that a lot, like, you know, this thing and this thing and this thing, but do you really know it? We dig in for 3 seconds and you have no idea what we're talking about.
I
Oracle
totally
V10.
disagree. Those make for great drinking games. Just personally saying, I love them.
Yes, yeah.
I've been coding for a year and I know Oracle V10 like the back of my hand. It's like, what?
Drink to that. Great. Well, I'm going to toss this one back to Lonnie. You know, being a prominent member in the active digital jobs community, you probably have a pretty
Prominent
unique
now.
perspective on this.
I'm prominent.
But what advice would you give somebody who's transitioning from non-tech to tech? And what have you seen be really successful, just as far as preparation, resources, just things that you have seen really work, and maybe even some things you have seen absolutely not work?
So I think the Austin Digital Jobs community on Facebook is this really kind of weird community where people have asked these kind of questions. So my answer comes from what I'm reading from other people. But I think that's probably better for you guys that are actually hiring. But I do think that, God, I don't know. That would be a better for one of you guys.
Yeah. No, I mean, so, you know, what I look for somebody who's really transitioning, and the advice that I give is you really have to be intellectually curious about what you're trying to get into. Read a ton. Get involved in the community. I've seen some people go from no experience to having a really great job in a field that you would never imagine in a couple of years by getting really deep into the subject matter. I think you can go
which
a long
is what
ways.
most people here are looking to do, right? I mean, like, y'all are really narrowing down what you're doing, and I think that that's a really important part of it. And especially, I mean, if you have Austin Coding Academy, all of us know what that is, and we're going to look at it and say, oh, okay, you didn't just, you know, fart around and get an English degree. JK, I have an English degree.
I didn't even get it.
I'm totally kidding. I have an English degree.
And too, that as someone that's made that
Sending you a hug.
Yeah, as someone that's made that transition, I worked my butt off. I was back home in North Carolina, quitting a different career as a machine programmer, which is a whole different language, a whole different thing. Kind of just like floating, shooting like music videos, and honestly getting stoned almost every day.
Love it.
That's what you do back home. But I had this writing portfolio of some time as a journalist, and I built websites back in high school just because I was bored. And I kind of got sick of it, and I just kind of took that gumption and taught myself JavaScript, HTML5, PHP, some C#, Angular, the entire mean stack, actually. And unfortunately, there weren't programs like this back home, and which kind of sucks. So, like, when I got the job, I figured out all these gaps in knowledge that I would gladly go back and actually do one of these now to actually fill the ones that I don't know, because you don't know what you don't know until you know you don't know it, which kind of sucks.
Whoa.
But you had something to show for it when you were transitioning. You
I
didn't
did.
just say, I want this job, and now I'm an expert.
Oh yeah, no, I busted my butt. That's one thing. I may not be good at school, but I've always been relatively intelligent. I have something to show for it now. And you have to be dedicated, and you have to be willing to work on your own on projects that you care about, because it's what I had to show. Like, I helped build the website that I wrote for. I just went out and found and made something. And that's what we want. That's what you want to do. Like, we want someone that's passionate. You built a game for yourself because you're bored. You want to know how to do it. You built a website for yourself. That's a great place to share your portfolio. Build your own website. Don't take the cheap way out, pay someone. Do the work. really. Like, you have to be passionate to really make the transition.
I think too, as well, especially for the people who are transitioning, going back to what I was saying earlier, where if you understand what the business is doing and how that company makes money, rather than putting yourself in a position where you are trying to become an employee of that company, think of it as trying to sell the services that you've acquired through the educational component and your experience in the past, and how can that help the company make money. If you can speak to that and say, I was an accountant before and I wanted to be a coder, and so I went to school and learned coding, and I see that you guys do this, you do financial services or whatever it may be, and you're looking to hire a developer. Like, speak to why you went into the accounting profession, why it wasn't the right one for you, what you came back through to learn in the coding capacity. It makes you, one, you've already done the research on the company, so you're that much more appealing for them to pay money for you to help them make money. And two, you are more than just give me a job. You're more than standing there. It separates you from the crowd as well. Instead of saying there, I want to come work for you, okay, tell me why. And you can speak to that why aspect, because I think, especially here in Austin, what I've seen, the why aspect will more likely get you the job than just being able to do the job.
Well, how cool is it too when you walk up to somebody and you say, I'm applying for this job, and they're like, oh, hey, Rachel. Like, it's cool to have a really strong digital profile, and it's the first thing we see. But this meetup, for example, is what you need to do. If you're making a huge change, you need to get into the community. Austin has a very rich design community, and for you to get into it and to talk to people, we look for passionate people. We're looking for people to change. Specifically, IBM is looking for people that are passionate about taking on major projects to make global change. It's a huge feat. And as great as your GitHub could look, and it needs to be good, you need to know me. I want to connect with you. I want to know you, because I'm not going to offer your resume a job. I'm going to offer you a job. And so if I don't know you, or it's difficult to connect with you, that's the big piece. Connect with your digital community, connect with the design community. You get in, you know names, you know people, you can speak to that.
I send Lonnie cat photos like once a week.
I'm not going to expound on that. But yeah, networking I think is networking is a really important part of it, because especially in Austin, people are so generous with their Rolodexes, right? I mean, I may not be hiring, you may not be hiring, but we know people who are. Everybody in Austin knows somebody that is. So go to as many relevant networking events as you possibly can.
And the transition is certainly possible. I mean, I did it on accident. I mean, I wrote a business plan and my employer said, hey, yeah, we don't have any developers to help you, so here's some books, go learn. So, I mean, what you guys are all trying to do, if you're transitioning, it can happen. And a lot of really great developers, especially with as new as some of the web technologies are, started completely in different places and became...
Here's another point to consider. There's not a single college program in the US that has a degree as a recruiter. None of us started in any of this. And so we've transitioned into these jobs just like you guys are trying to transition careers as well. And I mean, I think we're all speaking to points where we've learned over the past, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
Ask, right? Like, ask for something, okay?
Don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, I started my career in recruitment because I am super passionate about sustainable design. I'm from Colorado environment. Colorado picked me up to be a canvasser. I canvass door to door. Like, hey, have you guys ever heard about global warming? Oh, you haven't? Well, let me tell you, right? So then I realized, like, I'm not going to come out and ask for $20 to save global warming, right? Like, I'm going to ask for $2,000 and you're going to give me $200. But that's way better than my $20 ask, right? When I first started in recruitment and I moved to Austin, I was asking for all kinds of things. Coffee meetings, this thing. Can I take you to lunch? Can you give me an informational interview? What's the worst thing that's going to happen? No? I mean, that's not that bad, right? If you're polite and you have the empathy and you understand that someone might not get back to you right away, and maybe you have to remind someone a couple of times, do it nicely. It's okay to ask for stuff. I think that's the best way to show someone that you know what you want to do.
Awesome. So we're going to open this up to question and answer right after this question. But the last thing I want to ask you guys, and obviously I'm sure this could probably go for quite a long time. You've touched on a lot of these points, but given the audience here, if you were them, what would be the one piece of advice you would give them to say where they are now as far as just starting out down the path of learning to code and eventually want to get into this industry? what would be the single piece of advice you would leave them with?
I'm going to jump in, if that's okay. The biggest piece is we see a lot of people, of developers specifically, who stick to what they know. And the more open you are to learning new things and different ways of coding, or, hey, I code, but I also do a little X on the side. Whoa, UX.
I want to party with that person.
I'm just gonna.
Walk into IBM, it's like, pet the wall. Pet the wall.
My jam is gonna watch this, man. Oh well. It is what it is.
UX.
UX. You know what I mean. But yeah, just have that open mind, have that need and the curiosity to learn other things. And I'm gonna stop talking because I can't really come back from that. So
I'm gonna run with that because that's exactly what I was gonna say. You just started learning. You're not gonna stop, and if you stop, this profession isn't for you because this is about continuing to learn, and technology is evolving constantly. So if you want to be in this field, you have to be pretty passionate about learning new things.
Yeah, agree. I mean, we set up a 4-hour block every Friday where we have no client meetings. We have nothing but internal brown bag lectures. So if one of my engineers says, I'm so stoked about Scala, I'm going to put together a slide deck and I'm going to do a 15-minute presentation on it. The rest of my team is jazzed. They're excited to learn it, right? I couldn't agree more to keep learning. It's not anything that's going to stop, especially in this type of a field. There's a new JavaScript framework like every week. So,
What's the weirdest named JavaScript framework?
And also, I guess that's the other side of that coin. Don't just learn things to learn things. Learn things to be able to say, I chose this for this project because it's better, because I looked at everything else that was available, and this was going to solve the need.
Yep.
Mine's going to be more generalized, but it's going to be kind of what I've seen be the big difference maker is engage. Like, try in a digital capacity, in a in-person capacity. I've had at least once a week, I try to go out and sit down with somebody to help them fix their resume or to make connections. I connected this guy that was complaining on Austin Digital Jobs he couldn't get anything done. And well, his resume was a mess. He looked like this guy who was a writer, a coder. Like he was trying to be like 5,000 things. I'm like, here, talk to this guy. I helped him like a year ago. He's overseeing all this stuff at Atlassian now. And now he's got an interview in Atlassian to go work with this guy because he was open to reaching out to a community of 12,000 people to say, I'm fucking up, somebody help me. And it was one of those things where if he hadn't engaged, I wouldn't have known that he was needing help and I wouldn't have been willing to help him. But make sure you find the communities that you're interested in and just engage with them. Go show up. Like that's 90% of the job is just showing up. So.
Well, Lucas stole my answer. Thanks a freaking lot. But I would say for those of you that are closed-minded to starting your own company or being an entrepreneur, I highly recommend it. And I dropped my mic, so.
Still here.
Okay. No, I think it can be daunting. It can be scary if you've never tried it. But I think especially while you're in learning mode, try to start something. It may turn out to be something. It may not. Try to start a lot of things. But when you go through one of these lovely people for your day job, always be doing stuff on the side, always be learning, always be starting new things, starting new projects, never stop.
All amazing answers that I would take 5 times over. But don't be afraid to fail. Don't take yourself too seriously.
Especially in Austin, right?
Especially in Austin, especially coding. You're going to crash something. It's going to happen.
If you haven't broken something, I'm actually
while
concerned.
you're learning, fail as much as you can.
Fail all the time. Just the other day, we had, before our senior Mark left for his wedding and honeymoon, he accidentally crashed an IPO that we're working on 10 minutes before the CEO was trying to show it to a potential investor. Oops. No excuse for trying to spill milk. We fixed it, moved on. That investor obviously not interested because we couldn't show it to him. But mistakes happen is basically it. Like, don't lose your cool. Don't take yourself too seriously. Take your work seriously. Do that. Don't crash something because you forgot a semicolon. That happens. Don't blow up over it. If it crashes something more major, something that's detrimental, maybe you just can't figure out how to get to work, talk about it.
Don't throw your computer.
Don't throw your computer. don't throw a $4,000 piece of equipment at someone. I've done that at a different job. You can ask me about that if you want to. That actually made me lose my train of thought a little bit.
Don't be afraid to fail.
Don't be afraid to fail, basically.
Not never.
No, it's not never. It's good.
Well, so far this has been great. We want to take a couple minutes now to have some questions from the audience. If you guys could, if you have a question, just raise your hand. I will point to you, ask your question, I'll repeat it, and then I'll kind of open it up to you guys. So if anybody has any questions for the panelists. Yes, Vanessa.
So there was a lot of talk about breadth and being involved in a lot of things, staying curious, but when you're looking at resumes, how important is breadth versus depth? Full stack versus front end?
So real quick, just to repeat the question, how important is breadth, meaning being proficient at a wide variety of different things, versus depth, being very proficient at one or a small number of things? How important is that to you guys?
I can start. This is pretty applicable to my team. I'm always looking for the start, right? Like if I have a back-end role, I know that it's going to be predominantly Java. But we recently hired a top-notch Ruby dev that decided, okay, I know that they want Java, so I'm going to do my coding assignment in Java, and I'm just going to show them what I can do because I understand the fundamentals of things. And so you can't stretch too far, right? Because then you're kind of a jack of all trades and a master of none. But if you can kind of say like, well, I can do this, which is similar to this, which is what you guys are looking for, then show that to us, because it's similar to that tenacity to learn, but it's also saying like, I know what my wheelhouse is and I know what I'm good at, and I'm not going to sell myself to be something that I don't necessarily want to do. So when you're thinking about the breadth, also take yourself into consideration. It's a two-way street, right? You don't want to just get paid. You want to enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on that. Like, what do you want to do? Do you want to be deep in Java? Do you want to be deep in Ruby? Or do you want to be a full stack developer? What makes you happy? Because you'll excel at that the most.
Yeah, the resume should be a representation of you, and whether or not it's a fit to a specific job is irrelevant most of the time. It should be more of a representation of you, because if you're saying that you can do all of this stuff, and like Jess was saying, if you're a master of none, sure, you might be able to recognize Java code and write top line level, but that's going to be all you can do. And if you go in misrepresenting yourself to the company as somebody who's able to solve the problem that they're looking to hire for, you're going to put yourself in a world of hurt.
Questions?
Ryan. Yeah, so I had a question, and I know it'll be different for each of you, but basically, as you go about recruiting or hiring, to what extent do you feel like your job is to really evaluate whether this is a good program, if it's a dev job, let's say, versus to what extent is it like just feeling out the human aspects of it, whether they would be a good culture match, personality, work ethic, things like that. And if it is a big part to try to evaluate them technically, do you ever reach out to an external help to evaluate them?
So two-part question, just so I make sure that I reiterate this properly. So what is the balance between technical ability and personality? Is that correct? And then if you do need to evaluate technical ability, do you ever reach out to a third party to help do that? Is that correct?
I have my own devs that work for our organization, so they tech screen before they move on to our clients. And I would say I'm probably 60-40. So 60% culture, personality, 40% technical. So really what my guys are doing is a fingers and toes type interview. They're kind of doing a cursory glance over the resume and making sure that you actually know what you represent on the resume. I'll let my client do the deep dive into your technical ability, and frankly, I'd prefer that.
Yeah, I can speak for the majority. I think I can speak for the majority of the recruiters here, where the recruitment team is going to be maybe, like Brett was saying, like maybe that 60-40, 70-30, more focused on culture and your ability to communicate, where the tech screening is going to happen second, third interview to ensure that what you're saying you're able to do, they believe it and they feel comfortable with that as well. But we're not. Our job is to get the right people in front of them so that they don't have to talk to people. Because as you guys probably know, the developers are notorious for not liking to talk to people. So.
My team's pretty social. They like to talk to people. I know enough from my career to know if you're just kind of bullshitting me. right? If you're just kind of a fast talker and I don't see that natural spark in your eye, it's expensive to involve other people in the interview process. I'm asking for hours and hours of time. So yeah, I would agree. I'm mostly concerned with like, hey, are you curious? Do you want to learn? Are you going to get along with my team? Do you seemingly know what you're talking about? Like, I'll ask you a couple questions because I spend time, my team's small enough that I get to spend time with each of them to understand what they're looking for in a coworker and what types of technologies that they're using, what types of technologies that they don't know that they want to learn. So then if you're coming in with something like that, I'm like, oh, this would be really cool. I could set Ryan up with Jeremy and Jeremy's interested in what Ryan's doing and like this could be a great conversation. So it's a little mix of both for me. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I definitely let my engineers do the technical screen. I am proud of myself. I will fork code via Bitbucket for your homework assignments. Like top notch for me, but that's about as far as I'm going there, yeah.
Cool.
It's kind of, so with IBM, it's everything is based on scale. How can we do this at a massive scale, right? So if you apply online, the first thing that we're going to see from you is technical. That's our first view of you as a human. And then you continue on through the process and we get to know you and your culture fit better. If you know someone and you're a personal referral and someone can speak to you, I'm already knowledgeable of your culture, let's check out your technical. It depends on how you come through, but they're about 50-50 for me. You have to have both. We have passed on excellent talent, not because they weren't talented, that wasn't the point, but that they couldn't fit in the culture of the person that we're looking for, the designers and developers we're looking for, is to change culture, to even up the ratio between the engineer and the software designer at the round table, and to do it with somebody who's egoless, who isn't like, I made Starbucks. You know, like you can't have that. So you gotta be humble, at it too. So. It depends on where you come from, but it's definitely both very, very valid pieces to have.
Can I say one other thing? Yeah. We've been saying, all of us have been saying like our culture, our culture. You have your own culture, right? You might not like what we're doing. That's right. Okay. Keep that in mind, okay? Like culture is different for everyone and you don't need to fit into my mold. You just need to understand how you're gonna work best. And I have people come to me all the time and they're like, Jess, this might not be the job for me. Thank you for telling me that. I might be on the same page, but I want to know that too. I want you to be happy at work.
Yeah. I'll second that. We're a small enough team. Like you're going to be with the same people that interview you every day. 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours at the most. Chatting, making quips. I'm cranky in the mornings. Before I get my coffee, no one else is in the office before me because I get my coffee early. We want to see how you fit. It's definitely like a 70-30, 60-40. And it's not necessarily like we have a set culture. Everyone works differently in the office. The point is we can all work together to solve the problem that a client presents us with. They want to get traction in a certain market. They want this app to fit this certain way. That's at the end of the day what we're doing. And I personally don't care what a person's beliefs are, to each their own. We just want to make sure that we work well together as a group because we are small. We're super early in that respect. You're going to talk to everybody. For us, that's how it's going to go. That's just how it is. We will vote behind Survivor style, yay, nay. We've done it almost every hire. Yay, nay, pass, fail. It works for us. We're small though. We're not IBM.
So by the time somebody gets to me as the COO, they've already been vetted. So I think my answer's probably a little bit different. I'm looking almost primarily for personality because at that point, they've already been vetted by our team, right? So. The number one, and I'll tell you the secret, the number one thing that a company like ours as a news organization is looking for is somebody who's not condescending because from the outside, we're not developers. And sometimes developers, and this is not you guys, nobody in this room, of course, but sometimes developers can be really condescending because they can sniff out that I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, right? So if you're nice, you're humble, like you've said, and you're not condescending, that, like for our company, that can accelerate you very quickly, but no, we don't. Since we're doing such a very specific thing, we can tell based on your experience. So we don't do any outside testing.
Great. And yeah, we're gonna have time for one more question, and then what's up? One over here. Okay, cool. One more question, then we're gonna have some mingle time. Jared.
So this is kind of a two-part question. So it definitely makes sense that you need a certain threshold of skill before you can even consider really getting into the field. And there's a number of people here that are really just trying to transition. So I guess the first question would be, what is the threshold that you guys would consider for an entry-level position where you think that someone's considered skillful enough to really have a shot at being a contributing member of the team for an entry-level position? And then the other part of it would be, how open are some of y'all's clients to hiring people that are looking to develop their skill further if it's not incredibly impressive to start with? Because obviously you need to have a good enough level to contribute, but it can be very difficult if you're in a separate career already to have continuously updated GitHub on a daily basis and pursuing complicated, expansive projects. Those types of skills, you might be developing in your career as opposed to trying to get into the career. So, what are y'all's opinions on that?
So just to reiterate that, make sure I understand it or say it properly. What is, if you could describe a little bit about what the threshold of skill level is for entry-level positions, and then also how heavily do you weight the hustle factor, for lack of a better word?
I can speak to this one. We had a team today that was 6 developers that are simply writing HTML code for 3 months, and at very entry level. Like, we're talking, they had 3 code samples they could put forward, and they're going to be working on projects, and at the end of that project, 2 of them are going to go on as full-time employees of the client, and they're building HP's new website. So not only are you getting that brand that you can attach to your portfolio and stick with it, but you also are getting the experience of working in a professional environment. And these are all folks just like yourself that came from different careers, decided to go and become coders with a rival school here that I won't talk about. But it was that connection where they were open to working with us as an agency who we were given that project because the firm that we placed them at was like, I don't have time to go find 6 entry-level people that I know nothing about. Can you guys interview a bunch of people and then tell us who we should go with? And so we submitted the code samples, they gave us back the ones they liked, and then we selected the 6 that were following up with us, and we put them out on a project. So it can vary, but I think that goes back to they all engaged with us. At one point I sat down with them and did resume reviews and did some work with them. So I knew them on a personal level as well. And if I'm going to be trusted with making that decision from the end client, that's going to be my word on the line to that end client. So I want to make sure that the people I'm putting out there are worthwhile and not schmucks that are going to leave them high and dry halfway through the project. And that does happen.
We've hired code school graduates.
And for the record, we totally support every other school in town as well, too. And however we can.
The most recent junior that we hired out of a code school, the reason that we decided to hire him was his documentation was on par. His code might not have been the best, right? But he documented everything, and it was thoughtful. And because OnPrem has that second arm, which is consulting, which kind of speaks with what you were saying earlier, you have to communicate technical information to non-technical people at times. And it's really important that you get started in your career in that right mindset of like, okay, I'm gonna be thoughtful with what I'm doing. It might not be the best solution, right? But don't always go in there with like, hey, I know all the answers. If I interviewed every single person in this room, I wouldn't know all the answers, right? There would be some learning curve for me too, but it's about that communication, and code is communicating, and you have that documentation element behind it. So I would say be thoughtful, be clean about things, because it's not necessarily always just about like checking the boxes. Have you done these types of projects?
Yeah, don't be a Nazi soldier. Like ask why. Know why you're doing what you're doing, because that's. I just got a guy a job over at Xenos here a little bit ago I had 3 references where like he wanted to know why he was coding something before he would even start on it. And he was one of their best developers and their team leads that started off as a junior level coder coming out, but he just kept asking, why? Why am I doing it this way? Why do you want to do it this way? And then he could give guidance to the rest of the people working on the project. So always have that in the back of your mind, why am I doing it this way?
So something kind of unique for IBM, which is exciting. First of all, when you're vetted, does the code work? If it doesn't work, then there's nothing there. If the code works and the culture skill's there and you're good to go, we know you're entry level, and we have absolutely hired people from code academies, absolutely. They come in through new entry-level positions, and they learn and they build themselves. But they go through a 3-month intensive boot camp called Design Camp that IBM has kind of created and we've molded. And whether you stay with IBM for 2 years after that or you stay with them for a career, it is the most amazing development for you as a developer, as a, no pun intended there. But I mean, it really does challenge you to the most to understand, hey, how can I be really, really competitive after I leave IBM, or with what I really want to do with my life. So it actually builds you as a person, and futuristically, which dually helps us, of course, because that's only going to better our products and make delightful experiences. But to get past the first door, you then enter into this great design camp experience, would be really cool. But design has, the code has to work, and the culture has to fit.
For us, if the code works, that's great. We want the code to work, obviously. We hired Mark, and myself for that matter, with little to no experience, and it worked out for us. But we saw something, like when we hired Mark, we saw something in him, that hunger, that drive for knowledge. That's what we're looking for, ultimately, for us. I mean, we're a small company. We're growing, so we want people that grow with us. So we're not afraid to take someone that's new, if they have the drive and the determination to learn. We'll build them up. We don't have a coding school, unfortunately. That'd be amazing. But we have a good team. We care about each other day in, day out, and we'll teach you. We encourage questions. If you don't know how something works, our CEO is an accomplished coder. He's worked for companies like Booz Allen, a couple of game devs, the Department of Defense, Walmart. He knows his stuff. He doesn't code anymore because he has us. It's the perks of being the boss. But we want to see you use the fountains of knowledge that you have at your disposal, really, for the most part.
That's a great point, really. I mean, it's the same thing, two-way street, right? Go to a place that you know that you can continue to build upon what you want to know, and make sure that the team's going to support you and give you the avenue to do it.
Awesome. Any last points, parting thoughts?
I don't get stoned anymore.
I'm not even going to say it.
Just
I'm not even going to say it.
Just hitting up that UX, right?
Just hitting up the UX.
Awesome, guys. Well, I want to say thank you to all of our panelists. Also, thank you guys for coming. A couple last. Yes, thank you. This is the first of what will be many other events. Austin Coding Academy plans to have more panel events like this, as well as interview prep workshops, resume prep workshops, incorporating all sorts of ideas, thoughts, and advice as such that you've heard here today. So what we're going to do right now is we're just going to hang out. We have a little bit of time. There's still some drinks and some food, so feel free to mingle and get to know some of these panelists, get to know each other. Just a small, shameless self-plug, but Austin Coding Academy. Well, actually, first of all, before I do that, I want to say thank you to Scale Factor. I don't know if any Scale Factor folks are here, but they've been very generous in letting us use this space tonight. Austin Coding Academy will be moving into our own dedicated space for our next session, which starts September 14th. It's on 2505 East 6th. Thank you. It's been a long time coming, but as you might have seen some of the pictures up front, there's Chris's delightful back. There's a really amazing, what we think is an amazing mural on the wall now that'll mark where we are. So anyways, once we get all set up, like I said, classes start September 14th. Enrollment deadline is September 7th. So check us out online if you're interested in checking out classes. But for everybody that's here, if you've signed in, we have your email, and you'll definitely get an invite to the big kickoff party that we'll be having once we get all moved in and set up. So anyways, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you again, panelists, and enjoy the rest of your night.